Hi, I'm Grayson. Today we're going to be making venison jerky. This is my 7-pepper jerky blend. This mainly has red pepper flakes, 6 other different types of peppers, brown sugar, paprika. It's more of a sweet and spicy type of jerky. This is fresh venison that I harvested this year. What I did was I mixed all of the wet and dry ingredients into the meat, squish it around, mix it really good, and let it sit in the refrigerator at least overnight. This set for about 24 hours. That's just so all of the seasoning can soak in and the salt will cure the meat better. In the old days, they would use salt to cure meat. They would pack the meat with salt, they might brine it, and they would smoke it. This is sort of the same concept, except we're using a dehydrator. I let this sit in the refrigerator overnight, like I said, just to let the meat soak in, and it sort of cures it. The salt cures the meat. And also what it does is, obviously it's in the refrigerator, it makes it cold, and then it squeezes through the gun better when the meat is cold. This is a jerky gun. How it works is you take this nozzle off, pack the chamber with meat, and then pick your tube, I guess you would call it. I'm using the round one today. This makes like a Slim Jim style beef jerky. There's strips and rolls, all kind of stuff. But this is basically like a caulk gun. As you can see, this goes in like this and pushes the meat out of the nozzle. And then I have these racks on the dehydrator. I just make my strips of jerky, just like that. You don't have to have one of these jerky guns, but it makes it really nice and you can get nice and even strips. Oh, whoops. My dog just walked in. He smells the meat. He likes the beef jerky when it's all done. I guess he can't wait until it's done. This jerky gun's all packed now, so I'll just gonna make a little bit of pressure on it. Okay. Now you see it's taking up a good bit of space. That's why I like to pack it in there as hard as I can. I didn't get it too hard, but this should work. So now this dehydrator has a nice rack where it lets air flow all through it and it dehydrates it on all sides. So now I'm just gonna squeeze the trigger and move it across the rack, and just as smooth as I can to make nice jerky strips. Making jerky can be a great way to empty out your freezer. A lot of hunters at the end of the season, they'll have their freezer full of the not very choice cuts or whatever they didn't eat that past year. A lot of that will end up being roasts. And what you can do with that is grind it up into burger meat, either make burgers or, my favorite, making jerky. You can take 5 pounds of jerky and it'll end up to about probably 1.5 pounds of actual jerky. So that's a great way to use up all your ground meat. I've filled 4 trays with the meat. We don't have a fancy dehydrator. You don't have to have one either. This is just a food and jerky dehydrator. It's nice because it has variable temperature settings. A lot of people are leery of doing meat in a dehydrator because they're afraid it might not cook enough, because it's not actually cooking it, it's just drying it out. But this one actually has a jerky setting, so you don't have to worry about that. You could even make venison jerky in the oven. You could just put the oven on as low as it could go and then crack the door, and it would do just the same as this one. I have it set on the jerky setting, which is 160 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm just going to plug it in, and I'll check it in 4 or 5 hours. But it'll probably be done in 8 hours. And I might switch the racks around because it dries faster on the top rack rather than the bottom. Alright, our jerky's been dehydrating for about 6 hours now. Let's see what it looks like. Okay. There's 4 racks on here, and each of them are about 1 inch thick. So the top 2 or 3 racks are always going to be cooked more than the bottom ones. This is the top rack right here. How I like my jerky is I like it to be pliable like this, but not, you know, too crackly or crispy. If it's hard, then it'll be a little bit tough, but it is ground meat, so it's not going to get too tough. Now if there is some pink on the inside, that's okay, because there is special salt that keeps the color of the meat, and it just makes it look better that way. So this top row is good. And also, if you accidentally have a little bit thicker or a little bit thinner, you can take them out as you go, or add them in. The second rack looks good. The third one is mostly good, but there are a couple thick spots that are a little bit soft, so I'll probably let them go in for a little while. And then the third rack still needs about 30 more minutes. So what I'll do is I'll just separate out all the thick pieces from the top sections and then put them all on the rack on the bottom so they can all cook a little bit longer. Now once they've all cooked, I take them off the rack, let them cool. They need to be completely cool before I package them any. Now you can just put them in a Ziploc bag and they'll keep in your cabinet for a couple of weeks or even longer. I just like to put them in the refrigerator because I'm a little bit worried they might mold because they're still a little bit moist. But what I do is I take a good bit of it and I vacuum seal in these vacuum seal bags, and I stick it in the freezer, and it'll keep like that for years. So I can just take this out and give it as gifts, or you know, if you just want some along down the road, you have it. Now this batch of jerky right here is our 7 pepper recipe. It has 7 different pepper flakes. Now this is a little bit spicy. It's also sweet, so it's kind of our sweet and spicy jerky. It's more on the spicy side though. If you like spicy, you'll like this. If you want it a little bit more sweet, not quite as spicy, you can not put quite as much red pepper flake in there, and that, you know, will make it a little bit less spicy. Just take off some of the red pepper flake or 6 pepper flakes according to your taste. Now making jerky is super simple and easy and fun, and it makes great gifts and snacks.